Initiation into Hermetics, a practice of magic, by Franz Barden. Let's wind the window up on a rainy day. Magic, physical training, 5. In this step, I shall quote some exercises which render possible a deliberate passive communication with the invisible ones from the magical point of view. In a certain way, the methods resemble the spiritualistic ones, but the magician will soon notice that he is not training himself to become a person without any will of his own, called a medium by the spiritualists. The magician may not become a plaything of uncontrollable powers. On the contrary, he directs his powers consciously and also learns to use them deliberately. In this respect, he considers the laws of the invisible world as well as those of the physical world. To further the passive communication with invisible beings, there are recommended mainly the levitation exercises with the purpose to magically prepare any part of the body in such a manner that such beings can manifest themselves with the help of levitation. Let us begin with the practice at once. Do sit comfortably in front of a table and put your hands on it. Perform an accumulation of vital power in your right hand and concentrate on the fact that you are able to manage your hand and your fingers solely with your mere willpower, i.e., not with the help of the muscles. Let the accumulated vital power diffuse in the universe afterwards by the way of the imagination. Now begin with the proper levitation exercise. Accumulate the airy elements in the forefinger of the right hand and concentrate on the forefinger becoming as light as the air. Next, try to imagine that you are lifting the forefinger with the help of your willpower. Leaving the hand with the other fingers quiet and motionless on the table. You must have the feeling that it is not your muscles are lifting. You must have the feeling that it is not your muscles are lifting the finger. That's what it says. But that your willpower is doing so. As soon as you have managed to get the finger upward, let it drop again by your willpower. Should you stop to concentrate while the finger is still aloft, it would drop instantly. One could try this, only to establish how far the willpower or the muscles are intervening in it. If you are capable to levitate the forefinger of the right hand, optionally, with the own willpower, you can proceed in the same manner with the other fingers. The levitation exercise is fulfilled as soon as you can lift and drop all the fingers of the right hand at your own will. Now proceed in the same way with your left hand and its fingers. Having managed this as well, try to lift the whole hand this way. First the right hand and afterwards the left one. Provided you can notice a success after several exercises, go ahead by lifting the hand at will not only up to the elbow, but right to the upper arm. You can extend these exercises and lift both hands at once with the help of your willpower. Should the magician decide to extend these exercises over the whole body, he would succeed after a while, without any doubt, in raising his whole body by his willpower. He would be capable to walk upon the water without sinking down. He could even ascend into the air with his whole body and accomplish numerous other similar actions, just as it pleases him. It is obvious, of course, that he would have to practice these exercises for many years in order to gain the aforesaid success. Grand adepts do manage without any difficulties to produce such phenomena, without being forced to do such exercises for years, because it all depends again on the magical maturity and development. Never will any magician of a high standard perform phenomena of that kind without an urgent reason, and least of all to satisfy the curiosity of other people. At our stage of development, we shall be content to move the hands and fingers according to our own will. Having reached this point, we shall turn to a different preparatory exercise which is absolutely necessary for the passive communication with the invisible ones, and I shall demonstrate the practice as follows. Need a drink. Sit down again in front of a table on which your hands are resting calmly. Now try to imagine plastically that your spiritual right hand is protruding from the physical one. Put the psychical hand close. I was going to check that. Physical one. Put the psychical hand close by the physical one, or let it glide through the table on your knees. You have to regard the imaginary spiritual hand as your real one. In the carnal hand, there is now occurring a mental vacuum which has the shape of the external hand. Do think at this moment that the carnal hand is quite harmless, being thus in the fourth dimension, the Akasha principle. If you did manage this for a short while, go back again with your mental hand into the carnal one and finish the exercise. Repeat this several times until you succeed in exteriorizing the hand as described for at least 5 minutes. You can work on the other hand in the same manner. Excuse me. As soon as you have managed this very well, you are prepared to take up the communication with the invisible ones. We can see by now that the magic preparation is very different from the one of the spiritualists who behave passively insofar as they take a pencil in their hands and write or paint. Whether the messages which are asked for by the medial writing or painting of the spiritualists are actually coming out of the fourth dimension, or the way they call it, from the world beyond, or whether they originate only in the subconsciousness of the medium is in question, is entirely left to the judgment of the magician. A hand which has been exteriorized according to our method has really been transplanted in the fourth dimension and can be seen by any being of that sphere which wants to use it to send messages to our material world. As soon as the beginner has done these exercises, he is enabled to communicate with the beings of the fourth dimension. The magician will first of all try to come into contact with his guardian genius, his spiritual guide, to whom he has the closest relationship. Every scholar of magics is fully aware of the fact that the divine providence at the hour of his birth has given him a being with the purpose to watch over its protege, a guide, and to inspire him. In accordance with the development and the karma, this being can be a deceased person or else an intellectual entity not yet embodied on this planet. This being takes care of the spiritual comfort of the protege, mostly up to the puberty period. The more man is maturing intellectually, the less attention does the spiritual leader pay to him, especially in cases of people who do not even remember their guide. The contact is loosened more and more. A lot could be said about the ranks of such guardians and their activity as well, but this would overstep the frame of this work. The magician certainly has got the faculty to communicate with his guide, to learn all he wants to know and to receive everything he is in need of. He may be quite sure, provided he be honestly interested in the whole problem, ennobling his character and working hard on his magical development, that his guide will try first to make himself known to him. Therefore, the scholar should aspire to come into contact with his guardian genius. Here follows now the necessary practice. Take a sidereal pendulum. It does not have to be a special pendulum. A ring or a small object will do likewise. Even a nail, if nothing else is conveniently near, which is to be tied to a silk thread. Twist the end of the thread several times around your forefinger. The pendulum is swinging CA, I don't know what that means. The pendulum is swinging 8 to 12 inches, in brackets 20 to 30 centimetres, free in the air. Sit down in front of a table and put both your hands on it. The elbow of the hand holding the pendulum is to prop on the table. The pendulum is swinging free above the tabletop, CA 0.8 to 1.2 inches, brackets 2 to 3 centimetres. The elbow remains propped up. The hand is to keep upright. Put a glass of water, a vase, or any tinkling object, CA 2 to 2.8 inches, brackets 5 to 7 centimetres, sideways of the pendulum or behind it. As soon as you have finished all the preparations according to these instructions, exteriorize your mental hand from the one holding the pendulum and put the mental hand close by the carnal one. Having done so, develop a state of trance in yourself for a few moments. The way you have been instructed in the chapter about mental training by recognizing yourself with your consciousness in the center of the navel, therefore you are now in the fourth dimension. In this condition, do call your guide and ask him in your mind. He might manifest himself to you with the help of your magically prepared hand. Keep silent and observe the pendulum, beseeching the guide. At the same time, to indicate with one stroke of the pendulum on the glass a no, with 2 strokes perhaps, and with 3 strokes yes. You will be very astonished indeed to notice that the pendulum is beginning to move, giving the requested strokes. Sensitive people will even notice that the hand holding the pendulum has been moved by a strange hand. You will probably have the feeling as if your own hand had become a glove with a strange hand in it which is moving the pendulum. Other persons again will not notice anything at all, but have the sensation instead that the desire is guiding the mind indirectly, moving the muscles of the hand and hence causing the pendulum to sway to and fro. This outcome is absolutely individual and depends on the aptitudes. Supposing the first attempt to produce the communication with the spiritual leader should fail, there is no need of being discouraged. After a few more attempts, every scholar will certainly succeed in bringing about the communication. Once the connection has been established, one can ask questions to the leader, whether mentally or aloud, which will be answered with yes or no, or with perhaps. The questions ought mainly to concern the leader himself, for example, if he is willing to manifest himself, or if he was already embodied on this planet, and such like. As soon as the contact with the help of the pendulum has been brought about, one can use a planchette instead of waiting for the strokes on the glass. This gadget is a circular disc which one has to divide in sections, marking each of them with a letter of the alphabet. A small circular blank is left in the center of it. The pendulum will point out single letters, and by spelling the letters, one will receive messages from the leader in detail. After achieving a good result, one can arrange for a bigger planchette containing the entire alphabet, numbers, sections with yes, no, and uncertain in brackets, perhaps, days and hours. In the center remains again a blank to start from. For performances with this planchette, the pendulum will be replaced by a small liqueur glass. With ink, watercolour or indelible pencil, trace an arrow serving as a point on the leg of the glass. Now take the lower part of the glass between your forefinger and middle finger and allow the glass to be moved on the letters by the leader's hand. The peak of the arrow will then indicate the respective letter. To operate an easier gliding motion of the glass, one can set the planchette underneath glass. Set the planchette underneath glass because the small liqueur glass will naturally move about much more smoothly on the glass base. The scholar may find out for himself such and similar appliances. He will also find many constructive observations in the spiritualistic literature. All that matters is satisfaction of the most urgent needs of the moment. A further method is to beseech the leader to lift the forefinger of the magically prepared hand. Do ask him to lift the finger once if the answer is no, twice in the case of uncertain, and 3 times if the answer is yes. Noticing a success with the forefinger, try it with the other fingers too. One will notice that there is always a certain finger that is particularly easy to get on with. One scholar might be more efficient in lifting the forefinger, another using the middle finger or the ring finger. One ought to stick to that finger which is moving best. This, of course, depends on the flexibility. The magician will appreciate this method very much because it will enable him to operate a passive connection with the invisible world, either with his leader or with a deceased person, even in a situation where a planchette or a pencil cannot be used. For example, in a party, out of doors, and so on. He can even hold this hand in his pocket and get replies of yes or no, being in a vast crowd, especially if he has acquired a certain skill in this manner. Having managed all of these experiments, one can take up the mediumistic writing. The method is as follows. Give me a sip of milk. Put a sheet of paper in front of you and take a pencil between thumb and forefinger like you do for writing. Now push a rubber ring not too tight over your thumb, forefinger and middle finger. You can manufacture this ring by cutting it off a bicycle tyre. The purpose of the ring is not to have to concentrate entirely on the holding of the pencil. Now induce a trance in yourself. Call your spiritual leader. Prepare your right hand magically for him in the described manner and beseech him to write with the help of the right hand. In the beginning you will notice only some uneven lines. Later on illegible words, and after some exercising, words and sentences will come about. If one sheet of paper has been filled with writing, change it for a new one. You can get a reply to every question. By constant exercising, you will acquire such a skill that the medial writing does not cause any difficulties at all. In this manner, you will be enabled to call deceased friends, relatives, and members of your family with whom you want to get in touch, I suppose. The magician will be convinced that there is no such thing as hence and beyond, that there are only the different degrees of density in the 4th dimension where the diverse beings exist, and death will not mean the end of everything to him, but a passing over to the 4th dimension. Finally, I should like to remark that there are several kinds of medial writing according to the aptitudes, which I shall mention briefly. 1. The automatic in brackets mechanical method. In this case, the hand moves absolutely automatically, without the magician knowing what he wants to write or what the spirit concerning is going to write. Messages in foreign languages will also be received, even in languages the magician does not know and has never heard before. Paintings and drawings can be created as well. The inspirational method, the most frequent, here the messages will be given in a sort of thinking aloud inside or outside the own personality. Did I say 2? 2. I'll read that again. 2. The inspirational method, the most frequent. Here the messages will be given in a sort of thinking aloud inside or outside the own personality. In this case, one practically knows beforehand what the being is about to write. By frequent repetition, this inspiration will become a loud thinking and listening in the passive communication. One will perceive messages from the depth of the soul or from outside of the own self. 3. The intuitive method, where you have the feeling as if you did the writing yourself. Any questions will be answered instantly. Nobody but oneself appears to know the answer to the question. This is a kind of clear knowledge. The hand writes words and sentences in full consciousness without the person hearing anything or being inspired in any way. The methods can also appear in a mixed kind, for example, half automatic and half inspirational, or intuitive and inspirational, or all together. Which of the methods will be the dominant one will only be known after a long spell of exercising. Each of the methods is good and reliable provided you are using it honestly and candidly. Practice makes Perfect. Absolutely. Now I should like to give a comment with regard to the questions one is going to ask the beings and to the answers one can expect. First of all, the magician is supposed not to boast of his exercises and results. The more silent he is keeping about his communication with the invisible ones, the better for him. Furthermore, when choosing the questions to be asked, you always have to consider that the beings you are contacting are subject to laws different from those we have to deal with on this physical plane. Besides, beings which had been living before on this earth will soon lose their orientation because our physical plane is tridimensional, depending on time and space, which does not occur in the sphere of the fourth dimension. Only highly developed beings are capable to give correct information about time, events, future, etc. Consequently, the magician will first inquire about the home of those beings and rather prefer messages about the fourth dimension for the sake of his own education. Later on, as soon as the scholar has developed his spiritual senses, he will no longer need the passive communication with the invisible ones, because he is himself able to achieve anything such a being could inform him about. The passive communication only serves the purpose to be convinced of the existence of another world which everybody will enter and live in after passing away. Summary of all exercises, Step 5. 1. Magic mental training, space magic. 2. Magic psychic training, projection of elements outwards. A. Through the own body, accumulated through the solar plexus. B. Accumulated through the hands, especially dynamically through the fingers. 3. Magic psychical training, preparation to the passive communication with the invisible ones. A. Release of the own hand. B. Preparation of the fingers with the help of the pendulum, the pencil, the planchette, etc. Passive communication. A. With the own guardian genius. B. With deceased people and other beings. End of 5th step.